button thing. It drives me nuts because I have to rename all the files. If I named it 001 opening, it plays the old one. And I'm like, oh, hold on. So I'm in here renaming files. I don't see you in the link. I don't see you in the meeting. There he is. All right, cool. I'll have to text Eric and go, you did say 6:30, right? Or whatever it is his time, 2:30 or whatever. We'll get it all straightened out here. All right, see ya. All right. Alexa, turn off the office. Okay. Much better. What am I listening to?
Okay. Do I sound all right?
Yeah, for a guy using a Yeti, you actually sound really good. What is that? Though it's Pandora. I'm like, what? I'm still hearing music. All right. Close that. Close a couple hundred things. Oh, I still have to load these files. Give me 2 seconds here.
Yep, no worries.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because you're doing a really good job of addressing who your market is.
Mm-hmm.
That's the good news. The bad news is I had no idea what you guys were talking about. Which is like, okay, this is good. This is niche stuff, but it's yeah, there's Eric. Where's the link? Yeah, let me do that. Okay. Invite. All right. Okay, now that he's looking for Squadcast. That's what we are, not Squadcast. StreamYard is what we used to use.
I used to use Zencaster.
I know
it was so unreliable.
That was it, and it was funny because there's a new one out. Oh, I forget the name of it. And is this not uploading? What the hell? All right. And the CEO contact, we really love you to test this out. I'm like, great. Because it gave you separate audio and separate video. And that's one that I go, do we really need that much flexibility?
Right.
And then I used it once with him and it was great. And then I used it on an actual interview. And by the end of it, we just had to just jump off and go into Zoom.
Yeah.
It created this it was like a 10-second delay where I would ask a question and he'd be sitting there listening. And it was only on like one of us. Like I was like, he could hear me perfectly, but he would just be sitting there. And I'm like, and then he'd start answering the question. And I'm like, I think there's a problem here. And then he would start to talk and it was just this huge thing. And I'm like, we can't communicate like this.
Yeah.
So and the guy asked me, like, hey, what did you think? And I'm like, well, I couldn't use it. I had to go to Zoom. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. He's like, would you like to try it again? I go, not really, not right now.
Yeah.
I got other things I can do.
That's always the thing too, is, you go through all the work to set up these interviews and things. And it's like, yeah, you don't want to sacrifice that.
Yeah. I give people a second chance typically if it's an interview, but that was like, look, you're going to have a hard time talking me out of Squadcast because those guys are smart. They listened. I said, look, make it easy. I said, and here's how you win your market. And they go, what? I go, make it work. I go, that's it. We're really not that hard a customer. We just, when I hit record, I don't want to have to sit there and go, I hope this works. I said, because the minute I got to do that, it's done. And I said, and we're also a talkative bunch. I said, the reason Zencaster isn't that popular is because that guy kind of messed up big. And I said, and everybody talked about it. I said, don't make it. I said, plus that guy added features that nobody wanted for a while. You could play jingles.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. I remember that.
And I go, nobody wants that. We just wanted to record things on separate tracks and make it easy to connect for non-techie people.
I had issues with Zencaster where like one of the tracks just stopped recording at one point, and so I lost like the second half of a whole interview, and it was with a CEO guy that it took me months to set up anyway, and I was just like, I'm done. I'm never using this again.
It never fails. The more important. That's why, like tonight, we'll be recording via Zoom. That's my backup.
Yeah.
And then I have the Rodecaster as my main thing.
Oh, nice.
So I always have multiple things. And even this week, I do a live show on Saturday, and a 90-minute show, and 80 minutes into it, every track reverts to, and I'm like, what? So I'm like, hold on, so I go back to the Rodecaster, download the file again. I'm like, maybe something happened in the transfer. No. And I'm like, well, thank God I did it on StreamYard, because plus I had a backup on YouTube. So I always try to have multiple things going. So, and now I got to find my cheat sheet. There we go. And hopefully now, if I hit play, there we go. I love that one. It's like, because must have been the first time I used this. It was a show called Welcome to Beyond Westworld. Mm-hmm. And every time I name a file 001 opening and load it into this app, it plays Beyond Westworld. Alexa, stop. Yeah, I know. So there he is.
Here I am.
Eric's like, wait, where's Dave? Why is Jerry Garcia recording a podcast? Alexa, shut up. Does she understand shut up? I don't know.
I've told her that before, and she said I was mean.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Please stop. How are you, my friend?
Things are good. How are you?
Hey, my county turned purple today. So they're like, don't go out, period. We've already had a 10 o'clock curfew, and now they're like, unless you are like something really big going, like I need to go buy a new thermostat for my furnace. And I was like, oh, I'll just do that after work. And my brother's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, what? And he goes, they're kind of saying don't go out, period. And I was like,
So purple's bad then, I guess?
Yeah, there's four. There's orange, red, I think yellow, and then purple.
So purple's the worst.
And purple's the worst, yeah. And so there are 3 counties smack dab in the middle of Ohio. And
you would think red would be the worst.
You would think. I need to go double check. But the thing I hate about it is these counties also have a giant level of nursing homes. And I'm there's the reason people are dying, kids. It's not,
Yeah.
So, oh, well. Anyway, so how this goes. That's the other thing I need to. This is a great exercise for Dave's ADD, because I have like 15 things going on at the same time. We'll introduce you. We'll bring you on. We're gonna play a couple clips. The fun thing is I don't know what Eric thinks, and Eric will learn here in a second what I think. And sometimes we agree, and sometimes not so much, which is good. That's why you get 2 opinions. So. All right. And the way this works for the audio is we've already had the big intro and blah, blah, blah. And I'll just say, hey, thanks for, blah, blah, blah. And we'll count it in. And the other thing is, and this is kind of why I like that it's not on StreamYard anymore. It's not live. So if we're really bugging something up, we'll just pause for 5 seconds and fix it.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. Yeah, I've gone from one extreme to the other. I woke up 2 days ago and my house was like 58 degrees. And now it's like 74. Now I can't get the stupid thing to shut off. I'm sitting here. Alexa, turn off George. George is my space heater, because it's tan, and so is George Hamilton, and that's how I remember that. So, All right, away we go. Oh, shut up. You know what I need to do is
I wonder if you could tell her to sleep for like a particular
Yeah,
length
that's-
of time.
Yeah, I turned the microphone off so she can't hear me anymore. So
You think?
yeah. That's always weird because then you talk about like, I don't know, cucumber radish sauce, and the next day you log into Amazon. It's like, would you like some cucumber radish sauce? And you're like,
Oh,
hey, yeah, spooky.
I'd have people come into my office and, hey, I have a client that wants to do a promotion for Windows. Anderson Windows wants a promotion. Can we, or Pella Windows wants a promotion. Can we work something up? Then all of a sudden I start getting ads for Anderson Windows. I'm like, I don't need Windows. We were just talking about a client.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
All righty.
So here's the deal. I went on and bought my wife something for Christmas. It's a canvas print.
Mm-hmm.
Now, every time I open YouTube, there's advertisements for this canvas print. Every time she goes on YouTube, every time the kids go on YouTube, they're like, hey, look at this great canvas print. And she's starting to go, what? Why do we keep seeing these commercials for this canvas print? I don't know, honey. I don't know where that came from. I don't know what that's all. That's strange. It's like, damn it.
Yeah. I
bought it already. Can I just make it stop? I don't need to see the ads.
In some cases, you can go to ads and click on it and say, already bought it. Or I did that today because I kept seeing, I forget the name of the software. And I'm like, I'm never going to use that. Please get that out of here.
Yes. I need to figure out if that's possible because it needs
you could also try clearing your cookies.
Yeah, that would be the other one. That's always fun. So
yeah. then you clear out like if you have any
all the good stuff,
and stuff, and then you're like, oh man.
Right. What was my password for that website I haven't visited in 3 months?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, damn it.
All right. And I don't want Cortana.
I hate when the website won't let you use your regular username. You use the same username for all the websites. And then it goes, no, it has to have 3 capital letters and a symbol. And then it has to have that squiggly thing in it, but it can't be more than 8 letters long. And you're like, damn it.
Yeah. I had one the other day. It was 10 letters, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, wait, what? I'm like, so I finally just had LastPass, make one. Cause I was like, all right, if I'm somewhere like, I can't think of anything. My dog's name backwards, sideways, address, birthday, still not enough letters. Okay.
What? It's not password 1? What?
All right. And I know, okay. I'm being notified for the meeting I'm in.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Welcome to the podcast review show. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting. This is where we bring people on who want to make their show better. Joining me is Eric K. Johnson from Podcast Talent Coach. Eric, how are you, buddy?
Things are good, Dave. Thanks for having me along for the ride again. Looking forward to it. And
tonight we're going to be talking with Scott from PayPod, the Payments and Fintech podcast. You can find that over at soarpay.com/podcast. Scott, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
And tell us a little bit about what inspired you to start the podcast.
Yeah. Well, what inspired me was I was asked by the company. I wasn't actually working for them directly. I've had a number of podcasts that I've worked on in various subjects over the years. And I had a business relationship with one of the owners of the business, and they knew I was doing these kind of freelance podcasting. And he said, hey, we want a engine where we can, have a great piece of content, also market our business and grow it and all of that. And so he asked, hey, will you produce this? And actually, would you host it? And at that point, I actually didn't know much at all about the payments or fintech world. And so I kind of dove right in of, hey, I'm this novice.
Yeah.
Let me go find some experts and learn more. And that's kind of what spurned it. And then as I went on, I was fortunate to, have success with it, and it was doing well. And I had an opportunity to come on full time and actually start heading up more sales things and marketing things for the company itself. And then I've just kind of kept doing the podcast ever since.
Nice. What are you hoping to get from tonight? What are you hoping for us to really focus on and give you the best feedback?
I think number one for me is I don't want the show to become stale, A. And B, I think I've had some challenges with just kind of feeling as though I'm all over the map with certain guests and how the show is structured. And if there's a way to improve kind of what I'm doing, how each episode's laid out, how, who I'm trying to find really, if maybe it's good to not have, just one focus on one type of guest. So I guess it's really content I'm really curious about, because I think that's key to hopefully growing it even more, because I think I've been growing slowly and steadily, but I really would love to reach that inflection point where it's, hey, you've got a really fantastic podcast that even, random layperson wants to listen to. And how to kind of match that with business goals has been my challenge.
Got it. And I think because we always send you out a questionnaire, you said your goal was to, where'd it go? I'll know this podcast is successful simply if our downloads continue to increase. We're able to land some true rock star guests, and that is great. I think we all want our downloads to grow. I was curious then, what about SoarPay? Like, what's in this for SoarPay? Because I thought this might have been a somewhat, what sounds a little bit like a branded podcast.
Yeah. No, it absolutely is. And for SoarPay, it helps us in a number of ways. Number one is just when you have a piece of content that is something that people really enjoy, they download it, they share it, they talk about it, they blog about it, whatever it is, that's just helpful to our website and the growth of our business itself. And then the second piece is in merchant services. So what we do is we help businesses get set up to accept credit cards or other various types of payments. And merchant services is very, very competitive. And so you want to differentiate yourself, and you want to, you basically have to convince a merchant, hey, I'm going to go with this person because so many people are offering, they have the same value proposition.
Right.
There's people competing on price and, cutting things down to where you're making a penny, that's it, And so what the podcast has done has really been a vehicle to sort of educate and really kind of bring people into our brand. I do sales, so I'll take sales calls. And I've had calls with merchants who are like, are you Scott from the podcast? Yes, that's me. And that's just a fantastic thing if you're trying to say, hey, come on board. We want you to be one of our merchants.
So is the podcast intended for business to business where you're talking to potential clients that are merchants, or are you creating this also for just the layperson who might want to invest into alternate currency and that sort of thing?
That's a really great question. And I've trying to do both. I want to have something, if you can have an episode that's just for someone who's business to business, that's great. And I want pieces for that. And I want someone who's into cryptocurrency or just really curious. Like, there's people that are like Apple fanboys, right? I had an episode where I talked all about Apple Pay with an Apple blogger, and I want that person to be excited and want to listen to this and learn something new. Especially as we get into everything, there are so many great financial tools out there, apps, all of this stuff that does matter. That's relevant to the average layperson. So I kind of want to hit both if I can.
Got it.
Great.
Eric, how much did you know about cryptocurrency before you listened to this?
I knew very little about crypto. I know what Bitcoin is.
Yes.
In fact, that it's a cryptocurrency. How I would go about getting any of it, I have no idea. So I was coming into this like, all right, well, let's learn.
That was it. I was excited when he picked this episode, and it's why Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency that matters, with Alexander Savetsky, I think is that.
Savetsky, yeah.
Yeah, of Amber, which is an app. So here is the opening minute and a half.
Welcome to PayPod, the show that features thought-provoking interviews with leaders and entrepreneurs in the payments and financial technology industries. From credit card processing to Bitcoin, we cover it all. So if you want to know what's happening right now in the payments industry, stay tuned. Now, here's your host, Scott Hawksworth.
Hey, what's happening, everyone? Scott here with you again and serving up another edition of PayPod, the Payments and Fintech podcast. This week, we are back to talking about crypto and specifically Bitcoin. Even more specifically, how to, quote, get in on Bitcoin and what the latest developments are in the world of cryptocurrencies. A lot of people might be interested in Bitcoin and maybe they even want to invest or they want to buy some, but they don't necessarily want to invest heavily. They don't maybe not even know where to begin, or maybe they just want to set it and forget it and have a more passive investment strategy. Well, the good news is if that describes you, there's an app for that. I'm so thrilled to be joined by Alexander Svetsky, who is an entrepreneur and Bitcoin enthusiast whose latest project is called Amber. Amber is an app that makes buying Bitcoin easy. Now, the bad news for folks in the US is that it's currently not available here, but if you're in Australia, you're all set.
Yeah, sorry.
Regardless, Alex has a ton of insight to offer on Bitcoin in general and entrepreneurship, and he has a unique contrarian viewpoint on a number of these topics I'm excited to dive into. So, Alex, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much, man. What an awesome intro. Appreciate it.
Speaking of editing points, why am I getting a weird?
You are going to 11 with your mic. I don't know what happened.
It's. Hold on a quick second. I don't know if you guys can. Do you guys sound like a robot?
I can't hear myself. Scott, can you talk?
Yeah, do I sound different?
You sound fine. It's just, do I sound fine to you, Scott?
Yeah, you sound fine to me.
Yeah, Dave, it's just you. You all of a sudden you're way overmodulated.
What?
It's like somebody took your gain and cranked it all the way up.
All right, we're gonna hit stop on that. You know what? We're gonna. Yeah, it's on my side. It sounds like a robot almost.
Yeah,
it's like this super quick slap back echo.
Just you, or do we sound that way too?
You sound that way, and Scott doesn't sound as bad, which is weird because you're coming through the same channel. Oh, I know what it is. Oh wow, that because I'm like, where am I getting feedback from?
What did you do?
I hit the microphone on this stupid app.
Oh.
Because I'm like, what the hell is going on? I'm like, I didn't know my speakers were on.
I when that happened, I freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh, did I send these guys a recording that is like has this complete disaster? I was so embarrassed.
Because I'm like, oh, what? And I must have just put, okay. I feel so much better. Okay, so we're gonna pick it up right from hearing the end of the that's the nice thing. I can play the clip later without the screaming feedback.
When we pick it up, I'm going to go, Scott, you could have cleaned up the feedback a little bit before posting this
Start
episode.
there.
Okay, here we go. All right, so that's the first, I think it was a minute and a half or so. Eric, what are your thoughts on the opening?
Couple thoughts. The recorded opening where she introduces the show, I like that a lot. Great short opening, got right to the point, tells the listener what the show's all about. I would have liked to have heard a little bit more about the benefit of the show to the listener rather than just here's what the show is all about. You do a little bit of that when you come in, like, hey, if you don't know anything about cryptocurrency or this or that or how to invest in it, we're going to get into that today. That tells me the benefit of the episode. I would like to hear a little bit of the benefit of the podcast overall. Like every week we give you tips that you can use to go invest in cryptocurrency yourself, or if you need help with merchant services, this is the place to be. So some benefit to the listener in that show open, but I love the briefness of it. So I don't want to see it expand too much because I love how, bam, we get right through it. And as we get into the interview itself, you do a nice job introducing the guest and giving us a reason why we should care about what he has to say. The fact that he's got a background and that sort of thing. And when you eventually get into the interview, you start with a great question. It wasn't tell us a little bit about yourself, the generic wandering into an interview like we most often hear. You started with a great solid question right up front. So I thought the start of it was really good. The only thing I would suggest is that if we're using this as a marketing tool for the company, and we're trying to attract clients to you, leave yourself a little room at the beginning of that before the discussion starts to demonstrate your authority in the space and what you do and how you help people, and just kind of tout yourself, pat yourself on the back a little bit, give yourself some breathing room there at the front. Maybe you give us a little tip of what's going on in the industry today, or the tip of the week, or how you helped somebody this week, something like that, that just kind of shows us, what you're talking about. You do a great job telling us why we should listen to the guest. Let's toot your own horn a little bit at first before we roll into the interview. And that might be something you do in post-production. You might record the interview, and then as you're piecing it all together, do some of that rather than having him on the line while you're going through all of that good stuff. But so a lot of feedback in, for a 1.5-minute segment, but that's my thought.
Well, that's one of the things that I had in my notes is with any interview, I always like to see the Jerry Springer ending, which is, what did we learn today? Because you just made your guest sound great, but it's your way of saying, and here's what I think about that, because in the end, you want to build that relationship with you. So I'm going to share my thoughts on what he just said and what you agree with and things like that.
And let me jump in right there, Dave. I love that concept, but as we both know, your entire audience doesn't make it to the end of the episode.
That's a good point,
right? There may be about 40 to 50% make it all the way to the end. People stop listening to a podcast when they're done doing whatever it is they're doing. So if they're listening to you while they're working out, when they're done working out, they're done listening to you. Doesn't matter where they are in the episode.
That's a good point.
So don't wait until the end to demonstrate your authority.
Yeah.
Put the good stuff right up front to make sure they get it. So, all right, sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. The other thing that I finally now get it is when I hear people from overseas go, you guys talk about things that are so specific to America. And I just feel like, pah. And so I'm like, when you start off, I'm like, hey, if you're new to Bitcoin, like this is the thing. And I'm like, all right, good. I'm going to buy me some of this Bitcoin when I get done. And then they go, as long as you're in Australia. And I was like, oh, son of a bitch. Really? Oh, all right. So,
except for you.
Yeah. So I don't know if you go, but if you're in America, go back and listen to episode 12. I don't know if you would have done that. I was kind of like, that is a problem. Like, what do you do when something is only specific? So that was my one thing, but I was excited because I am coming into this, like everybody I know is like, you don't have any Bitcoin yet? Seriously? Like, I feel like I'm really missing the boat.
I thought it was a good discussion about cryptocurrency itself worldwide. And not specifically on the app that's not available. I think you did, overall, as we'll see as we go through the show, you do a good job balancing the discussion of the app with the discussion of the industry overall. And so even though we can't get the app in the US, we still get a little bit of the other talk. Now, it was over my head, but we still got the talk.
Well, let me ask Eric, I'm going to quiz you because it was the one thing that I got done. I was like, wait a minute. How does the app work? Like, I know it helps store like a savings account for crypto, but I'm not sure, like, do you go in and just say, I would like to deposit to crypto, please?
That's kind of what I got. I wasn't quite sure how the app functioned, just because I think I was a little over my head with a lot of the lingo that happens in the episode. But to me, it sounds, he says, I go in, set it up, and then don't look at it for 10 years. Because he just wants you to continue to deposit a little bit of your money in there to build up your cryptocurrency over time, just like investments. If you have a good investment guy, buy and hold your mutual funds and don't go babysit them every day.
Yeah, that's it. That's what it is.
Yeah,
because I know at one point he said we started off where you would round up your payments and it would take the change, I think he said, and it would deposit it, and then they changed that, and I'm like, to what? Like, how do I? Because the whole time I'm like, how do I buy crypto then? So that was the thing. I never had a clear picture besides the fact that it's kind of a savings account for your crypto where you just put it in there and let it sit. But I was kind of like, the whole, like, what is it? How does it work? The benefit, obviously, it's crypto. And that's the one thing. It's very, but not too much crypto, rah, rah, rah. You know what I mean? In fact, I even like this. I thought this was a great clip from the guest. Sure. This clip, honest. All right, hold on.
That's a great clip.
It's an awesome clip. All right, we're gonna unplug and plug. All right, hold on. Now let's stop them. And
It got mad when you yelled at it. Now it feels bad.
Well, it's weird as you can hear it. It's playing. So this goes into here. That goes into that cable. That cable is plugged into here. Goes into this slider. It worked 2 seconds ago. All right. What? Oh, you know why it is? It's this.
Upside is stupendous.
There it is.
So that's
All right.
really the.
All right. Let's try that again.
Okay.
I really like this clip because this guy is not afraid. It's rah rah crypto, but he's also willing to say this.
Because Bitcoin's outcome will be binary, it's either the whole thing is going to blow up and we're going to end up living in some 1984 society where, you know, our money is tracked, traced, and followed, like sort of the social credit system that's happening in China today, or Bitcoin will succeed and it'll be a parallel economic system. And the value of each Bitcoin is going to be extraordinarily higher than it is today. So as a result, having some exposure is a smart idea. You know, your downside risk is minimal and your upside is stupendous. So that's really the essence.
So I like the fact that he was able to say, well, this could be really, really great, or the government could step in and shut it down, or whatever, however he wants to paraphrase that. So I thought that was cool. But I knew at certain points where I was just like, you know what? I don't believe I'm the target audience here. I'll give you a quick clip here.
That's the story that so many people know, is that pizza, right? The first pizza that was bought with Bitcoin and how expensive that pizza is now.
And I'm like, actually, no, not everybody does know that. And then this was the one, I think.
It's a nascent, growing asset, and it's the first time in history we've ever had an asset that we can invest in with an inelastic supply. That has never in history existed before. The only two things in the world that are inelastic in supply is energy and time. And now we've got a third for the first time, Bitcoin. That doesn't exist anywhere else in the universe. So like literally, this thing will be extremely volatile and violent in its movement as a result of that fact. And the best method for your own sanity is to just set some parameters whilst you're rational and unemotional, and then just walk away and let it do its thing.
I love that.
Wasn't Interlastic a big hit back in the 70s? Interlastic. Dun, dun, dun,
I thought it was a Beastie Boys hit.
Yeah, something.
So Scott, let me jump in here. This is the reason. This is the exact reason we want to identify a single target listener, because before we did the episode, we were talking about who your target listener is, and you told me that your target listener is payments and fintech professionals, which is great. Perfect. This is right in their wheelhouse, right?
Yeah,
they get it. They understand it. But then you said, but it's also entrepreneurs and it's also merchants. And so if it's entrepreneurs and merchants, I think we need a little more explanation for those people to understand what we're talking about here. So to Dave's point, if it's payment professionals and fintech professionals, and you say, well, everybody knows about that first pizza and how expensive it is today, all of those people are like, absolutely, 100%, exactly. I know what I'm right there. But if you're talking to entrepreneurs and merchants who could possibly use this payment system in their business in the future, they don't know it. And so you would have to explain it to them. But then your fintech professionals are going, well, yeah, we know what this is. Why are we going into so much detail?
Why are we slowing down? Yeah.
So we need to figure out if we're talking to those that are passionate about financial technology, or those that might have an interest in financial technology and want to learn more about it.
Yeah.
Now, there's a way to serve both, but you need to really embrace one of them. So like, let's say we're talking to fintech professionals, but we know we have these entrepreneurs and these merchants listening along. And you could say something like, well, you know, everybody knows that first pizza that was purchased with Bitcoin and how expensive it is today. You know, you bought it back then for $5, but if you took that Bitcoin and converted it today, it's worth $250,000 or whatever the measurement is. You know, everybody knows that that's what that is. Then the entrepreneurs and the merchants are going, oh yeah, I knew that. But they haven't been left behind. They're still caught up with the conversation. So that's the reason when you clearly identify that single person you're talking to and you know everything about them, now you know what sort of examples you need to give in order for them to keep up with the conversation. You know what sort of stories to tell. You know what kind of background information you need to give. During this interview, he starts dropping some acronyms, and I'm like, I don't know what that acronym meant. Like those letters just flew right by me. You know, but if it's for the fintech professional, they know, and so you don't need to explain it.
Yeah, because I know, and even that one, I knew that whatever it was when they bought the pizza, it's worth a whole lot more. So I wasn't clueless. I was just kind of like, well, how much bigger is it? Is it a, $12 million pizza now, or what's going on? But I did figure out by the end of the episode, on ramps and off ramps is on ramp is putting money in, and off ramp is taking money out of your bid. And I did, again, I forget the thing you said that means cents in Bitcoin. That was like, ooh, I know, of course I can't remember it now, but I was like, there's a new word. I'm going to write that one down. So, it was educational. It just, there was a lot of times I needed to go watch Wheel of Fortune, because if you ever noticed, there's Jeopardy, which makes you feel really stupid, and then you watch Wheel of Fortune and you feel real smart. So after this episode, for me, not being in the fintech industry, I was like, I don't know what I just listened to. So, but I was excited. I am now even more like, all right, I need to like go through your website and find the one that's for like Bitcoin or that guy. Oh, that's one thing I had. We're not going to jump to your website yet. The guy said he written. Okay, sure. The guy said he had authored a book on like Bitcoin 101, and you said, oh, I'll put a link to that in the show notes, and you didn't. So shame. So, Eric, any other thoughts on the interview?
There was one piece in there. It goes back to my target listener, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse. But you get into blockchain, and I don't know what that means, and what blockchain is, and it was a pretty long discussion about it. And so that goes back to, if the goal of the show is to educate listeners, let's be sure we do that with those sorts of, just even a quick definition of it before you jump into a full. Because he got into this whole controversy of whether or not it's legit and this whole thing. And I'm going, I don't know what it is, let alone know if it's legit. But on the other hand, if we're talking to people already in the industry and they know what blockchain is, then don't do that. Right. But again, it goes back to determining who we're talking to and what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And that was about it. Yeah.
The thing I liked is, and I almost, for me, it was the more, engaging part of the interview is when you got to the contrarian part. And you did two things great about this. Number one, you weren't afraid to ask the hard question, because you're like, look, everybody else is, a blockchain rah, 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 and you're going to come in and pee in people's Cheerios. Like, are you seriously going to do that? And what's great is then you just shut, and the guy, and I think it was interesting because he was even more passionate, because he was, very much Bitcoin rah, rah, rah. But man, when he got to the stuff he hated, he was super like, and I will, game, set, match anyone who will do this. How dare you, kind of stuff. And I thought that was real. And I was like, wow. And I still didn't quite get what he was talking about, but he just, I don't know. It wasn't quite so jargony. It kind of made sense a little bit more to me. And I thought he was making good points. And I like the fact that, it was contrarian. It was like, hey, I'm going to go against the grain. I thought it was cool for you to let him do that. And for him to very much so say like, look, if I'm wrong, I'll be more than happy to have a dialogue with you. But every time I ask somebody about some of the jargon, and he goes, the minute you do, they go, preparation or whatever, there was a P word in there, propagation or something. And so I really liked that part. I thought that was cool. Tell me how, like when you're writing because I'm doing it right now as we speak. How do you come up with your questions? Because I noticed some of them, and this is Dave being a little nitpicky. Like there was one where you asked, let me see if I have the clip here. You had 4 questions in one. So let me play this for you.
Okay, I have to ask you about this because, I introduced you at the top as a contrarian. From what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you think blockchain is maybe not all it's being built up to be. What are your thoughts on this underlying technology? Why aren't you so smitten with all of its use cases and potential as other entrepreneurs and business folks are?
Okay, that's only 2 questions. That's not the clip I was thinking of, but that's the one I was talking about. And I like the fact that you asked it, and then you just did a good job of just staying out of the way. So where some people will kind of interject and kind of you just let him go. The other thing, and Eric mentioned this at the beginning, I thought was great, is you said, hey, I heard you on this other podcast. I thought, A, that's really cool because it shows you did your homework. And B, we just learned your whole life history and we don't want to go there again. So in the Cliff Notes version, can you tell us this? Now, he didn't really give you a Cliff Note version, but it was shorter than that whole episode. So I thought I'm with Eric. I was like, hallelujah. You're not going, tell me about, tell us a little bit about you. That drives me nuts. That's nails on a chalkboard. So I thought it was cool that you're like, hey, this is not what I like. Don't give me your life history. Let's kind of get to the blockchain Bitcoin kind of discussion. I thought that was cool.
If I could give you just a thought about the podcast overall. At the beginning, at the intro, when you come in and you welcome everybody to the show, you're a little stiff and you're a little choppy, and welcome to the show, everybody. And this week we are going to talk about, and it's like very, very like you're very stiff, like you're performing. And then as soon as you get into the conversation with him, I mean, even when you start talking about him and introducing him, you relax totally and you become Scott, and it's fluid. And the stiffness only happens at the very beginning when you start introducing the show. So it's maybe 30 to 60 seconds. And then all of a sudden you become you and you're laid back. And when you get into the conversation, you are super conversational and right on, and the conversation moves forward. It's got momentum through the whole thing. You know when to jump in when his answers are done, and you don't go, wow, that's great, and then awkward pause while you think of another question. That doesn't happen. It's very conversational. You do a great job through that. I would try and bring some of that warmth that you have during the conversation to the beginning of the show. So rather than you're talking to him, you're talking to that one listener that we've defined now. And you just say, hey, thanks again for being here. I got a great show for you this week. This is who we're talking to, and this is what you're going to learn. And man, I hope you're ready for it. Hope you got something to write with, because I'm going to give you some nuggets today you're going to love. And here's the deal, and just be very conversational right from the get-go. Because I think you do a great job. And I only heard where Dave says, you ask 2, 3, 4 questions at a time. I didn't hear that very often.
No,
there were a couple times, but I think it was more of a time when a question just kind of popped into your head and you're like, wait a minute, let me ask him about this. And you hadn't quite thought the question all the way through yet, which is usually when those crazy questions happen.
Yeah.
But most of the time you were right on, spot on, and you were going, and you would do a nice transition. You would kind of sum up what he said, and then you would say, but what about this? And you would always ask the question and then stop talking, which is great. Many people ask the question and then try and justify the question, and they talk. And by the time they stop talking, the guest has forgot what the question was. So I think you do a nice job overall with the conversation and the momentum of the show.
Yeah, that was, I'm with Eric. When you finally kind of popped in, it was, number one, it wasn't like Eric said, it wasn't scripted, and just like, hey, today we're going to talk about this, and this guy's coming on. And it was very much just, you were excited without being obnoxious radio guy with the Auga horn. There was some energy there without being like, wow, what's this guy on kind of thing. So I thought it was good as well. Let's take a listen here to how you wrap things up.
Well, that's it for our show today. Thank you so much for listening. And if you like what we do here, don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes or whatever your preferred podcast listening platform is. We'll be back with another episode very soon.
Thank you for listening to another episode of PayPod, brought to you by Soar Payments. Soar Payments is a leading merchant services provider for e-commerce, high-risk, and hard-to-place businesses. If you'd like to get the latest PayPod episode sent to you automatically, subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher, or visit soarpay.com/podcast.
Good energy. So for me, if we want to, again, I'm like the king of nitpicky tonight. Apple frowns. They frown when you call it iTunes. It's
Right, because it's
Apple
changed.
Podcasts.
Yeah.
Because it really is all about the subscribers, and for me, a part of me dies every time I hear somebody say, please rate and review us. Now, the good news is you didn't say because it helps us get found, because that's the one that will send me over the edge. Ratings and reviews are great. They're the primary thing I've seen those used for is if you're trying to get a sponsor, because people will go, oh, wow, you really do have an engaged audience. But other than that, they don't do anything in Apple. So, and I would, if you want, it doesn't have to be in your navigation, but if you make a page like, hey, go to soarpay.com/subscribe, and you can subscribe in whatever, in your favorite podcast app. And then you have, because you have a great job when you go to the website there, soarpay.com/podcast, you've got, Apple, Google, and Spotify, which are the top three. If I was going to add one, I'd add Amazon, but we won't find out for about another month or two in terms of just how, popular that platform is. You would think it'd be, because it's Amazon. They like to do big stuff.
They've got their muscle there. So
yeah. So that would be my only other thing is, instead of saying Apple and Stitcher, just say, hey, go here to subscribe. And that way you can subscribe. And it gives you another chance. I like the fact that she came on and, re-emphasized your website. Eric, any thoughts on the ending?
Yeah, good news and bad news. The good news was you only had one call to action, which that is true. Fantastic. Great job. Love that. Bad news is I think it was a poor choice for a call to action because it doesn't get you closer to your goals. In your intake form, we asked you what your goals were, what you want your audience to do, and you told us that you want more feedback on the topics that interest them most. So if that's what you want your audience to do, let's make that your call to action. Like, what do you want to see? What do you want to learn about? What can I teach you? How do I, send me some feedback at feedback@show.com, or, head to the website at website.com/feedback, or whatever. Make the one call to action your goal. Getting people to rate and review you doesn't get you closer to that goal. That's the only reason I thought it was a poor choice for your call to action. I do appreciate it that it was only one, but let's make it what you want your audience to do the most. And your call to action doesn't have to be the same call to action every week.
Right.
So this week it could be feedback. Next week it could be subscribe to the show. The next week it could be, pet your cat twice for me. Whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
But again, think of all the podcasts you listen to. How many times have you gone and read the ratings and reviews? The chances are you've discovered new podcasts because your buddy told you about it. Have you listened to this podcast? It's great. Or you've heard it mentioned on social media or on another podcast or in conversation, or you saw it mentioned in an article. And then you're like, wow, that sounds like a pretty cool podcast. I think I'll go check it out. Rarely are we surfing through Apple Podcasts and looking at ratings and reviews before we go, you know what, I'll check that out. Because what I find most of the time are the people who are writing ratings and reviews don't know what they're talking about anyway, because they don't know my tastes. It's like people who hate movies I love, and people that love the movies I hate.
Or in many cases, it's somebody who's done a review for a review. So you see a lot of like, great show, love the host. Next review, great show, love the host.
This guy really knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, all these generic, non-specific kind of reviews.
I love that it was 32 minutes long. Like, I don't know, it's like whatever. So that I thought it was great. Your warmth here at the end was much better than at the beginning. At the beginning it was very stiff, and right here you still have that warmth you had in the conversation, which I love that about the close too. So nice work there.
So as we go to the website, let me share this real quick. So hopefully you guys see that. I like the look of the website. You've got a nice use of what's the thing when there's not a lot of words? White space. Yeah. So everything's got a fair amount of white space around it, so it's not too jammed up on it. You've got links to, in this case, your guests. You can get his app there. You can connect with the show. Actually, I didn't see these earlier. This is going to be one of my suggestions. You actually have subscribe buttons right here, which is cool.
I thought they were a little difficult to find. So on the main podcast page, I love the links to Apple Podcasts and the rest of them that are right there on the main page. But when you get into the episode page, finding the links were challenging. So here you have Apple Podcasts, you have Stitcher, they're right there. You can click on them, go listen on your favorite player. I love that. I'd like to see those big buttons on the episode page, because trying to find it looks just like all the rest of the text.
I just saw them. I was like, hey, they're here. That was going to be.
Yeah, I like the easy layout of this page right here. The podcast page that has all of your episodes on it. I love the grid feature. I'm very much of a clean grid kind of guy. I love driving in the US because we're all on the grid. I hate driving in Europe because they don't know what a grid means.
Right.
And, I'm the straight line kind of guy. And that's what I love about your website. It's really clean. For a financial website, this is the kind of image and brand you want to portray. Is like, this is what it looks like. You can trust us because we have all of our ducks in a row. That's the image that this website gives off. I thought the podcast was easy to find from the homepage. There's only 2 drop-down menus, so it was really easy to find. And then just getting into the episode page a little bit, I'd like to see those nice app buttons from the main page on the episode page. Other than that, I wouldn't change anything. I like the rest of it.
Yeah. And I was even impressed because a lot of people don't realize this. You're using Libsyn as your media host. And if you go under your show settings, you can put links to all the different places, and that actually shows up on the player. I'm not sure most people know how that you can remove Google Play, by the way, that doesn't exist anymore. But I don't think most people know that if I click on that button, that's why I was really happy to see these down here, but I totally missed them until like right now. It's like, oh wait, they are here. They're right here. So I don't know if I'd be tempted to, because you have this featured on the show, which is all about the app. I'd almost make like another heading, just subscribe to the show. And then here's the links kind of thing. But I'm with Eric. I thought it was cool. And then I was like, I wonder if there's a link at the bottom. And I get onto the bottom. Yep, there's a link down there at the bottom of the podcast. I'm like, that's awesome. So there's really not much to say here. Really, I was like, good job. And it's hard when you're a business. How do I have a landing page, and then how do I have a different landing page for my podcast? And I thought you guys did a great job, because it's one is here, this is the one for the podcast. And then this is the one where you're trying to actually get people to, do your products and services. And like Eric said, it's right there in the top. And I just thought it was
one other thing I love about the podcast page itself is when you go all the way down to the bottom, all of the contact information is right there, the phone number and all of it. I don't have to go click a contact button and then click the about us and then click, jump through 17 hoops just to find a phone number to call somebody to tell you I want to buy your stuff. You just scroll to the bottom and like, oh, if you want us, here's our phone number. And I love that. I love that. It's not real wordy. It's not like I have to comb through 17 columns of information. It's right there and super easy to find. So I love that there's 6 or 9 episodes, and then you can click to see more. So I don't have to scroll for 17 days to get to the bottom of the page. It's whoever does your website. I love it. I mean, the color scheme's fantastic, the whole bit.
Yeah. Yeah. You've even got the button tying in with the color scheme of your website. They got decent photography, and the everything's, it's just one of those where it's like, look, there's a scheme here. There's a organizational to it. This is how we, and every episode kind of looks the same, but yet looks different.
It has a little template, like every episode has that template that you use. So they all kind of, it has some organization to it.
Yeah. Where you have the person and you have, who he is or whatever. And so
it just lends credibility to what you do in the financial industry.
Yeah. So So I would love to find something to, well, we did. We make your subscribe buttons bigger on the
Yeah.
episodes. I'm like, I can't really find much here, but
Yeah, we tore it apart. There those subscribe buttons. Man, you if only.
yeah. Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I think one question that sort of came up when you were talking about sort of my outro and the calls to action, would it maybe make sense to, if I did set up a page that was, sortpay.com/subscribe, if I kind of said, subscribe here, and if you have any thoughts on a topic you'd like us to discuss or a guest you'd like to see on the show, you can message us. And
Yeah.
kind of
So
the call
here's
to
the-
action is go to the subscribe, and then I kind of have the subscribe information there and
In a contact form?
in
Yeah,
contact.
so you only have one call to action, and that's go to that page. That's
Right.
your call to action. So then you say, if you have some feedback for the show, you want to subscribe, we have perfect links, we have everything you need, our contact information and everything. All you need to do is go to theshow.com/page. And then, so that's your call to action. You're not trying to get them to do multiple things or different things. What you don't want to do is have your audience decide. Like,
Right.
shoot, do I decide to call them, or do I email them, or do I go to their website, or do I follow them on social media? Like, I can't decide which one to do, so I'm not doing anything. What you're
Sure.
doing is saying, whatever it is you want to do, go to this page. Go to this page. You want to see my beard? Go to the page. Whatever you want to do.
Exactly.
You want to send me Christmas card? Go to the page. So
Sure.
everything they want to do, send them to the page. So go to the page is your only call to action. You're giving them multiple reasons and benefits to go to the page, but it's still only one.
Sure. The other question I was thinking about is just in terms of the growth of the subscriber base. And that's been one of my big focuses because, I've gotten some great guests, some guests that I'm, really, really glad that I've been able to get. And I've reached a point now where we have, I get emails almost every day of someone, wanting to be on the show. I've kind of adjusted it because, I was saying that, is it B2B? It really is. And there's a lot of, payments and fintech professionals. Like, I've had a lot of success with LinkedIn in terms of just promoting the episodes and just getting the discussion going there and all of that. So my question is there anything more I should be doing in terms of trying to get that growth? Because I have run into in the past where I'm talking to a brand, I'm talking to their PR person or what have you, and I want to get their executive on, whoever it is. And then they'll start asking about, well, what are your numbers? What's this? What's that? And I'll tell them. And a few times they've been not as impressed. Other times they're very impressed. And I think the big thing is, hey, you just got to get those numbers higher. So that's one of my big things.
You could go into iTunes or Apple, either one. And if you get really good reviews, make kind of a little media kit to say, hey, we've got X amount of reviews to show that, hey, we are, we have an engaged audience. The other thing in terms of growth, you say you're working with a PR person. When the episode is done, let's say they come on your show.
Yeah.
When the episode is done, are you giving them like, here's a link and an image and a pre-written tweet, that kind of stuff? Because you really just want them to go, oh, cool, thanks, copy, paste, go.
Yeah, so I don't actually provide them with a whole specific put together kit, but basically what I'll do is I'll say, hey, here's the show notes. I'll attach a logo. I'll say, if you'd like, I'll even say, if you'd like, I can give you the embed code for the Libsyn player.
Yeah.
I've even said, hey, I'll give you the raw audio file if you just want to post that on there, as long as you cite the original post here, the show notes. I kind of do that. And I've reached a point where I kind of, obviously most of it's subject matter, but I'll kind of shy away from someone who I don't feel really has a platform to actually mention the show. If they're just like a random person who doesn't have, they don't even have their own blog, or they have no Twitter following or something. It's kind of like, this doesn't really help us grow necessarily.
Got it.
So a couple thoughts, two different questions. First of all, the question of landing guests by leveraging the size of your audience. When you approach guests and they say, well, how big's the audience? What you need to make them understand is because you're in such a niche, your audience size isn't going to be the same as a generic business podcast audience. However, everybody in your audience is interested in your topic. Like it's a specific topic. And so it's quality over quantity. It's a smaller audience than most, but they're all interested in this particular subject matter. They're all interested in cryptocurrency and alternate forms of payment. Whereas if you go on the Inc. podcast, only a small portion of them would be interested in your subject matter. So though you're not reaching as many people, every person you're reaching is interested in your subject. So please understand that as you compare my audience to others.
Yeah.
So make sure you're comparing apples to apples. With regard to growing your audience, you need to figure out what you're doing to get in front of people who aren't already aware of your show and already aware of you. Doing that through the guests that you have on your show is a great way to do that. And it's one way to do that. But if you're on LinkedIn or you're on social media or you're emailing your email list, those people already know about you and they're already aware of you. How are we getting in front of people who aren't? So you might consider being guests on other podcasts that put you in front of an audience. You might consider doing some interview swaps where you interview somebody in a complementary niche and they do the same for you. You might just swap mentions in your newsletter. Like, hey, I discovered a new podcast this week. It's called Dave Jackson's Cryptocurrency. Check it out. And Dave does the same thing in his newsletter. Hey, I've discovered a new podcast. Here's what it is. Go check it out. And so you kind of plug each other that way. But just find ways to go get in front of your ideal target listener, which is yet another reason to define that person, because when you know all about them, you know where to find them. In your intake form, you talked about the hangout and Reddit and stuff like that. And that might be an opportunity for you to go be active there in front of people who aren't already aware of you.
Yeah, Reddit's a good place where you'll be able to see what are the top discussions on this topic. And maybe that would then help you find, we need to find somebody who's going to talk about this. And then you go to LinkedIn to find out who can talk about this topic. So
Right. And what's their audience look like? And then you've kind of are hitting all of the bases, so to speak.
Anything else we can help you with?
No, I mean, I think that's really, you guys have given me a lot to sort of just look at and fine tune. And I think a lot of it too, it seems like you were just saying, all of the, being on other podcasts and swapping. I've actually done that a few times, but it sounds like, hey, that's something I should be leaning into more. And just kind of almost leaning into the things that are going well and then tweaking the things that could be better. It really seems that's kind of going to be the key. And then the other thing is I've just found that the consistency of our episodes has really helped. Just constantly releasing an episode. We do 6 a month now. And I've already seen that inflection point where I was hat in hand begging for guests for the longest time. Yeah. And now I have too many, I don't have enough slots. and so it feels good. And I think I just want to keep pushing forward with that.
Nice.
Great. I do have to tell you, I would have never guessed you were on a Blue Yeti. You sound great. And I don't know if you set up your microphone or if you had somebody do it for you, but you work it properly. You have the settings right where they need to be. It sounds great. And that's not an easy feat. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Sound great on it.
I had a previous business I ran that was called Audio Skills, where I made videos about people learning how to record and mix music. So I picked up some things.
You do a nice job with it.
Awesome. Well, if you want to check out more from Scott, go over to soarpay.com. If you want to check out the podcast, it's soarpay.com/podcast.
That's Soar, SOAR.
That's true. SoarPay is a whole other, that's where you're like, hey, it's time to pay up. Come on.
Yeah. Or sorbet, completely different thing.
Eric, where can people find you?
You can find me over at podcasttalentcoach.com anytime you'd like. And Dave, how about you?
You can find me at schoolofpodcasting.com. And if you would like to be right here, Scott's got the seat warmed up for you. Go over to podcastreviewshow.com/review me. So thanks so much for listening. We'll see you again with another episode of the Podcast Review Show. And remember, there's always room for improvement. Ta-da! Awesome. Eric,
Awesome.
did you have a heart out tonight? If I remember right?
Yes, I have a call coming up.
Okay. So anything
I
else,
appreciate it.
Scott, we can help you with?
I don't think so. I guess from here, you guys are gonna put like a post
Yeah.
together and things
Yeah,
like
I'm
that.
actually I switched. I'm using it's a cool tool called Podpage, which works great, except I was using a feed from WordPress
Hmm.
and then put that into Podpage. Great. Podpage will then go back and check your feed. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm using Podpage. I don't need this website. And I was like, wait, how do I can't kill the website because that kills Podpage. So I had to do this weird. And in the process, I ended up with duplicate episodes. So I'm working with the guy at Podpage. So as soon as that's done, I'm going to start putting out more episodes. But right now I'm like, I don't want to send anybody to the website because it looks a little weird.
Sure.
And he's really cool. And I'm very close to, I'll probably have that done by the end of the night. It's nothing really bad. It's just like, oh yeah, this is doing the thing and the thing. And he's like, yeah, that's so, so it should be out probably, I would think, what's today? Thursday?
Yeah.
If not this weekend, next weekend, definitely.
Perfect.
Because
That's awesome.
this weekend is, my brother goes to Florida for Christmas. And if we're doing Christmas, we still haven't figured this out. It'll be on Saturday. So, because he called me tonight, he goes, we might not be doing Christmas. And I'm like, okay, can we do it on Zoom and hold each up? Yeah, look, here's the gift card you're getting, so awesome. All right. Well, yeah. And I'll let you know when it comes out, but, thanks so
Perfect.
much.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really, really appreciate it. The awesome feedback that I got to take into the lab and do some things with. So thank you.
Here we go.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have any other questions, just hit us up on email. We'll be more than happy to answer them.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Have a
You
good
bet,
night.
Scott.
We'll
You
see
too.
you.
Bye.
That wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
I was curious how, because I really had no, like, content wise, I was like, I don't know if it's good or bad. So,
Right. It was very technical.
Yeah.
I thought he did a nice job handling it. He did
Yeah.
a nice job interviewing the guy.
yeah.
Just we have to decide who it's for and then
Yeah,
clean it up
that's
that
really
way.
it.
So all good.
But I'm just now putting out the stupid Worthy Now episodes because I was like, oh yeah, I'll do this before I move. And then that got much more entangled. And it was like Jason Sacco was like, hey, whatever happened to my episode? And then I was freaking out because I couldn't find him. And I'm like, we did 3 episodes in one night. And it turns out I went dyslexic. I thought we did them like in October, but we did them in August or vice versa, one of the two. So I'm looking in all my folders and I'm like, it's not here. And I was like, so finally I went to my calendar. I'm like, oh wait, it's the other folder. So anyway, man, but it's good seeing you.
It's great seeing you as well. We
And
gotta do this more often.
yeah, sorry, man. Have fun on your call.
All right. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
See ya.